In Mass Effect Andromeda's multiplayer, you are part of an Apex team, the best of the best the Nexus has to offer. While not a regular group of soldiers, they are nonetheless talented individuals that take on the most dangerous and important missions in this new galaxy. In this series, we are going to take a look at the various class builds for the various characters in the game's multiplayer. So with that in mind, I'm Darcblade, and let's take a look at the next character in our series of Mass Effect Andromeda Multiplayer class guides, the Angara Avenger. As always, remember that these guides are aimed at the harder difficulties in the game and are aimed at level 20 rank 10 characters. Of course, all of these guides apply to higher than rank 10 characters. It's just that rank 10 you get all of your ability points to spend. The Angara Avenger is an interesting class. An infiltrator by standards, the Angara Avenger comes with abilities found on other classes, bar one. It comes with a unique ability called Avenger Strike. The Angara Avenger is also the only female Angara character in the multiplayer currently, but nonetheless, all of her abilities and passives gel so well that she is a top tier character. As such, I spec the Angara Avenger as follows. First, I max out Sticky Grenade, going up to rank 6, putting points into anti-armor over anti-shield. Now, I always say these are down to personal preference, as most enemies in the game seem to have a balance of the two now. I personally went for anti-armor, as I found more annoying enemies have armor than shields. Next, with rank 5, I put points into grenade capacity over shrapnel. Now, this is down to personal preference in some respect. Grenade capacity will allow for more grenades and thus more room for error. Say if you miss a grenade, you have more in reserves. But shrapnel is good if you're able to land them grenades consistently and thus put a damage over time effect on enemies. But on top of that, because grenade supply also applies to stealth grid, it would mean I would be carrying similar amounts of grenades and stealth grid power cells. And then finally I put points into damage over radius, as I want the grenades to be dealing as much damage as possible. Next with stealth grid, I maxed this out, going up to rank 6, putting points into ambush grid over evasive grid. I took ambush grid to mainly increase my power damage while cloaked. As grenades don't break stealth grid's cloak, it means that you can fire off a few sticky grenades that have that increased power. It also benefits your team if you're able to get close to them and use stealth grid on them too. Next, with rank 5, I put points into duration over shield grid. Duration will allow the Angara Avenger to safely take objectives without fear of becoming uncloaked too soon. And then finally with rank 4, I put points into power cells over radius. Again, this is so I can have more stealth grids at my disposal. Next, with Avenger Strike, I go up to rank 6, putting points into Disrupting Strike over Cloak and Dagger. Now, I will be using Avenger Strike more as a disrupting and support ability rather than a damage dealing melee move. Thus, I took Disrupting Strike to stun my opponents, preventing them from doing anything, but on top of that, it allows you room to breathe, so to speak. Disrupting Strike also primes enemies for a tech combo, but they have to be set off by your teammates. Next, with rank 5, I put points into Flash Strike. This works well in conjunction with Disrupting Strike, as any enemy who is nearby the stunned target that you've used Avenger Strike on will also have their damage output reduced severely. And then finally with rank 4, I put points into Recharge Speed over Bleeding Strike to allow it to be used more often. I don't want to be in a clutch situation and have it on a cooldown when I really need the ability. Next with the passes, with Weapons Training, I go up to rank 6, putting points into Power Specialist over Weapon Specialist. This is to increase the grenade damage and also increase my power cell capacity. Increasing your power cell capacity benefits not only stealth grid, but also your sticky grenades. Weapon Specialist is alright, especially if you prefer to focus on weaponry. Next with rank 5, I put points into Ammo and Targeting over Specialist Combat Training. Rarely will this character be fighting airborne, and she really has no way to actually create her own combos. While she can prime them with Disrupting Strike in the Avenger Strike tree, she can't actually detonate her own combos. So I took Ammo and Targeting, mainly for the spare ammo and the weak point or headshot bonus. And then finally with rank 4, I put points into power and melee damage over weapon training. And then finally with bioelectric defense, I really only put 1 point into this, putting points into health and shields. This is simply to give me a little bit of extra survivability. Now, if you really wanted to, you could drop points elsewhere, namely in Avenger Strike, and max out bioelectric defense. This will give you and your team some extra survivability, but as Avenger Strike is the unique move available to this class, and I want to base all the classes around their unique aspect, I opted for a weaker defense. However, because this is an infiltrator class and you have stealth grid, which is tactical cloak on demand, it means that you shouldn't need a lot of health and shields. Now as for weaponry, the Angara Avenger can carry quite heavy weaponry. With that in mind, I normally take with me a hard-hitting sniper rifle for long-range encounters, and some sort of close-range siphon weapon for when the enemy are close to you. As for your gear mod, go with something to increase your grenade capacity. It's vital to get as many sticky grenades and stealth grids as possible for this class to succeed. But anyway, moving on to the heart of the episode to talk about the moves and abilities available to the Angara Avenger. First is Sticky Grenade, a standard grenade that when thrown sticks to surfaces or targets, after which it will explode after a 2-second timer. The damage is at its most at the center of the explosion, with the damage decreasing the further the targets are away from the explosion. Sticking the grenade to targets can be a little bit tricky. As it is a grenade, there is a slight arc to it, making long distance grenade throws very tricky. However, you can help yourself a little bit by holding the ability button down. This will allow you to aim the grenade slightly. Doing this won't cause the grenade to explode in your hand, unlike frag grenades. When using them, always try to stick them to at least one target to ensure that at least one target will receive the most damage that these grenades can do. In the case of the Angara Avenger, using sticky grenades while cloaked with Stealth Grid won't cause the stealth effect to break. This means that you get the benefit of the bonus damage that Stealth Grid gives for all the grenades thrown whilst you're invisible. This can come in really handy, as you're able to run through the enemy lines strategically sticking grenades to high priority targets. Sticky grenades though are a power cell ability, meaning that you have a limited and finite amount of them. You can replenish them at ammo boxes scattered around the map, but for the most part you have to keep an eye on how many you have. But this can be its greatest strength and greatest weakness. When I say greatest strength, it means that you can throw as many grenades as you're carrying at a target in a small window, meaning that you can do a large amount of burst damage to a target, bringing down bosses or high priority targets very quickly. However, like I said, it's also its greatest downside, meaning that you can run out of them and be at a disadvantage. The next ability is Stealth Grid. This works similar to Tactical Cloak, meaning that when you use the ability, the Angara Avenger will cloak themselves, becoming invisible to the enemy. However, Stealth Grid works slightly different, as it can cloak your allies who are near you as well. Allies who are within 4 meters of you will become invisible, receiving the bonuses that Stealth Grid provide. When attacking from a stealthed position, your gun, power and melee damage will all be increased. This also applies to your allies. Trying to cloak all your allies with Stealth Grid can be a bit tricky at times, because most of the time your allies won't stay that close together. Instead, they will normally fan out, meaning that you can only cloak 1 or 2 of them at a time. And seeing as Stealth Grid is another power cell fueled ability, it means that you will have a limited amount of Stealth Grids to use, so you can't go around cloaking everyone, wasting them. One of the major pros with Stealth Grid is that it allows you to drop enemy aggro, meaning that if you use Stealth Grid, the enemy will lose sight of you. They'll still continue shooting in your general direction if they see you go cloaked, but for the most part they will lose aggro from you going after your teammates. This really helps with this character's survivability. On top of that, it allows you to safely take objectives. With this character you could even sit on an upload or hack point and spam Stealth Grid over and over again, and the enemy potentially won't even come in your direction. This can be vital on the harder difficulties, especially Platinum. If you have a Stealth Grid user, such as the Angara Avenger, send them out to do the objectives like hack and upload, while the rest of your team distract the enemy, drawing them away from the points that need to be captured. And last though, like with grenades, Stealth Grid comes with a downside that it is a power cell fueled ability, meaning that you have a finite amount of them. However, because Stealth Grid renders you invisible and for the most part fairly immune from the enemies, it means that you can run to ammo box, resupplying your power cell capacity, not only restoring your Stealth Grids, but your sticky grenades. So learning where the ammo boxes are on a map is a must for this character. The third and final ability available to the Angara Avenger is Avenger Strike, a move only available to them currently, although it is available to Jiao in single player as well. But anyway, once used, the Angara Avenger will cloak themselves before teleporting behind an enemy to deliver a strong melee attack. For the most, this attack is considered a melee attack, but the way I'm using it in this build is more of a defensive tool and disruption tool. On the lower difficulties, this can be a wonderful tool if you're focusing on a melee build, and I would advise that if you're playing on bronze and silver. However, on the harder difficulties, like I said, Disrupting Strike and Flash Strike come in very handy. Because Avenger Strike, when you use it, you get invincibility frames while you teleport behind an enemy to land that melee attack. It means that after that enemy will be stunned, and any nearby ally of theirs will deal considerably less damage. This gives you an opportunity to recloak with Stealth Grid and then retreat or throw some grenades. On top of that, enemies who are stunned with Disrupting Strike will be primed for a tech combo, which can then be activated by your teammates. Alas, the Angara Avenger has no way to actually set off their own combos at all. Because Avenger Strike, when used, teleports you a large distance so long as the enemy is highlighted, it means that you can use this to your advantage to traverse the map easily. Say you're doing a retrieval objective, if you've got the objective on your back and you see an enemy on the retrieval point, just use Avenger Strike to teleport to their position, and thus moving you closer to your objective's destination. Now moving on to the passives, like I said, with weapons training, I'm taking all the abilities to increase power damage, mainly for the increase of damage to sticky grenades. If you don't like to rely on sticky grenades, then I would advise taking points in increasing all weapon damage. And then finally, like I said with bioelectric defense, I only put 1 point in this for extra health and shields. As I already mentioned, if you want to max this out for more survivability, especially if you can get up to rank 3, then you could drop points elsewhere like in Avenger Strike, if you so desired. Now the Angara Avenger is a Angaran, and thus they come with above average health. They have average shields as well. They have a standard hover and dodge mechanic fueled with their jetpacks, and come with a fairly strong melee attack, utilising their Angaran Faran. Now if you don't have a rank 10 level 20 Angara Avenger, then I would first focus on maxing out stealth grid, followed by weapons training. Also in weapons training I would switch from power damage focus to weapon damage focus. Afterwards, depending if you're playing on the lower or higher difficulties, focus on either sticky grenades for the higher or Avenger Strikes for the lower. And then, like I said, if you didn't feel comfortable with the lack of survivability, add some extra points to bioelectric defense. Overall, the Angara Avenger is one of the highest tiered characters in the game in my opinion. She has some of the best abilities that synergize really well with one another. Although sticky grenades and stealth grid can be found on other characters, this is the only character that has both of them. And this, combined with Avenger Strike and her passives, allow her to pretty much take on any difficulty in the game and be very successful. For the most part, the rotation I use between all three abilities is Avenger Strike, followed by Stealth Grid, then Grenades. If the enemy is still not dead, try to use weaponry to finish them off, then you repeat the rotation. The Angara Avenger also is a class that benefits more from a roaming or kiting team rather than a hunkered down team. This is because they're able to go to multiple ammo boxes, thus restoring their power cells more easily than if they were stuck with a hunkered down team. At this moment in time, I would say she is probably one of the best classes in the game. She's the only class I've actually been able to successfully solo platinum difficulty on, thus making her a highly recommended character. Anyway, I hope this guide helps, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you a Mass Effect Andromeda Multiplayer class guide to the Angara Avenger. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.